Everyone knows the story of Detroit, how the auto workers built the middle class, how unions gave us weekends and healthcare, okay? So we tell ourselves this was capitalism's golden age, when workers and management found balance, when a factory job meant a house, 2 cars, college for the kids, okay? The problem is that in 1972, at the most advanced auto plant ever built, the youngest and most educated workforce in GM history basically said, fuck this. And what happened next changed everything, not just for factories, but for every workplace, okay? Maybe even your own mind. The Lordstown plant was GM's crown jewel. They recruited workers with the promise that this wasn't your father's factory. GM executives would bring visitors from around the world to see the future of manufacturing. And within 6 months, these workers, who had everything the labor movement fought for, were sabotaging the line. So they were letting cars roll off with engines missing, slashing upholstery, okay, putting Coke bottles inside door panels so they'd rattle. The plant that was supposed to produce 100 cars an hour was managing maybe 40 on a good day. The problem is that the management was baffled, okay? These weren't oppressed workers fighting for bread. These kids had money, okay? They had benefits. They had what every union since the 1890s demanded. So, GM did what any rational corporation would do. They hired industrial psychologists to figure out what the hell was wrong with these people, okay? The psychologists spent months in Lordstown. They interviewed hundreds of workers, okay? And they discovered something that should have been obvious. The workers weren't sabotaging cars because conditions were bad. They were sabotaging because conditions were good enough that they could finally see clearly what they were becoming. One worker, this guy, Gary Briner, put it perfectly. A man becomes part of the machine. Every minute, every second, your movements are dictated. You're nothing but an extension of that line. See, previous generations were too busy surviving to think about what factory work did to your soul. But the Lordstown workers, they had full bellies and money in the bank. And with their basic needs met, they could feel something else. They could feel their humanity being processed into productivity. Now, here's where it gets interesting. GM could have slowed the line, could have given workers more variety. Some executives actually suggested this. But the psychologists, and listen to this carefully, the psychologists said that wasn't necessary, okay? You didn't need to change the actual conditions. You just needed to change how workers felt about those conditions. So they introduced something called the Quality of Work-Life Program, okay? Workers would meet in circles to discuss problems. They'd have suggestion boxes, okay? They'd get to choose what music played in their section. They'd participate in, quote, job enrichment activities, okay? But the problem is that nothing fundamental changed. Same repetitive motions, same transformation of human into machine, okay? They just added feelings to the process, and it worked. The sabotage stopped. Not because workers were happier, but because they were given the performance of happiness. They could express their frustration in meetings, okay? They could write their complaints on cards. They could feel heard. So within 5 years, every major corporation in America had copied the Lordstown model. IBM created quality circles. AT&T introduced team building. Okay? GE launched workout sessions. By the 1980s, okay, you couldn't find a Fortune 500 company without an employee engagement program. But the problem is that these programs all shared the same DNA from Lordstown. Never change the structure, just manage the feelings about the structure, okay?
Okay, so you can already see where we're going. He's talking about making sure that productivity is honored at all costs. Okay, and making sure you're already seeing where the mindfulness conversation is about to come in. That people who are interested in high rates of productivity, well, they might be interested in making sure that those emotions stay under control so that that behavior stays under control. You feel me? So here we go. Let's get back.
Okay? Never slow the machine, just help workers accept their place in it. Never address the cause, just process the symptoms. Think about your own workplace. You probably have engagement surveys, feedback sessions, okay? Maybe meditation rooms or wellness programs, an open door policy where you can share concerns, okay? Team building exercises, mental health resources. All of this traces back to Lordstown, to the discovery that rebellion ends not when problems are solved, but when feelings about problems are properly managed. The really brilliant part was making workers responsible for their own emotional adjustment. Okay? If you were miserable at Lordstown after the psychologists arrived, it wasn't the line's fault. You weren't utilizing the quality of work-life resources. You weren't participating in the circles. You weren't managing your stress properly. The problem wasn't the machine. It was your relationship to the machine. Fast forward to today. We don't work on assembly lines, most of us, but we have something more sophisticated. We have apps that track our mood, wearables that monitor our stress, companies that provide therapy and meditation and yoga, not to change the conditions causing distress, but to help us bear those conditions more gracefully. Let me tell you about a study from 2019. Researchers looked at...
Okay, I just got to pause. Okay, so you're seeing, he's saying this ain't about managing or changing circumstances or situations, conditions. We don't actually care about things changing. We just want you to get back to work. So we're willing to do whatever's necessary in order to make that happen. But what I want you to understand and pay attention to as he continues to speak is what sort of what has to be missing from these therapy or meditation or these programs that they bring into these corporations or these organizations. Like, what has to be missing in order for people to merely remain pacified rather than transformed? That's the real point that I want to get at tonight. Let's get back.
At companies that introduced mindfulness programs. These researchers looked at companies that introduced... Let me tell you about a study from 2019. Researchers looked at companies that introduced mindfulness programs. These companies saw a 23% decrease in employee complaints. Sounds good, right? But here's what else they found. No change in actual working conditions. Same hours, same pressure, same fundamental problems. The mindfulness didn't solve anything. It just made workers less likely to articulate their suffering. Now imagine you work at, let's say, Amazon. You're in a warehouse. You're monitored every second. You piss in bottles because bathroom breaks hurt your metrics. Your body is breaking down. And Amazon's solution? They installed something called Amazen, literal meditation booths in the warehouses. Not more bathroom breaks, not slower quotas, meditation booths. So you can center yourself before going back to destroying your knees for $15 an hour. This is Lordstown perfected. GM psychologists would be in awe. You don't even need quality circles anymore. The workers voluntarily enter booths to adjust their own consciousness. They download apps to manage their own stress. They practice gratitude for having a job that's killing them.
All right. I mean, damn, like, you know what I'm saying? I like to keep it PG-13 on here, but damn. He said, look, you can go back, you can go ahead and you can go ahead and center yourself inside a meditation booth so you can get back to the job that's destroying your needs for $15 an hour. I'm laughing, but it's really actually not funny, especially if you know people who have worked at these warehouses before. I'm not here to tell anybody how they should run their business. But I just know what it feels like, or what it feels like to see somebody who comes back after doing, a shift at the Amazon warehouse. And so you have to ask yourself, what is the nature of these meditation apps? What's the nature of these mindfulness programs? Would you believe me if I told you that entire societies, particularly the Indus Valley civilization, known for controlling its population, from our standpoint, we would see it as control, but we could also say just organizing its population. They would do it around religion. Think of it like a what we know as Buddhism today. Buddhism had an ancestor, it had a predecessor. That proto-Buddhist religion would have been the one that the Indus Valley civilization would have practiced in. And the idea is that if you can just relieve your ego, then you can just be in the present moment doing whatever needs to be done. That is what mindfulness is. And there's been an explosion of research throughout academia talking about the effects of mindfulness. Frankly, I love it. The idea that we're asking people to go within, that people can, just by regulating their breath, just by being in the present moment, can actually change their body on a cellular level. Mindfulness has all kinds of marvelous effects. But in the philosophy around mindfulness, not the actual practice, not breath work, not meditation, not conscious transformation technologies, not the things that actually work, but the story we're telling ourselves around what we ought to do and why we need these techniques in the first place. It seems that from this video that you're getting here, and remember, I don't care what's true. I care about what gets us paying attention and asking deeper and deeper questions. So it doesn't matter to me if his facts are a little off or the percentages are a little, I don't care. It's enough for me to come back to this point about the nature of the narrative, the story that we're telling ourselves around spirituality, around mindfulness, around meditation, around going within. If you tell somebody, go ahead and meditate so that you can calm your emotions, so that you can get back to doing what I just told you to do, that's not real freedom, that's control. That's not real freedom, that's control. I heard in another video this dude, and I just studied a whole bunch of this person's videos. I was like, oh man, he's kind of cold with it, you know what I'm saying? And so, and even the AI generated joints like we just saw, And I'm thinking like the nature of control. People who are seeking control over others will use anything. They'll take the holy and make it a noose. Take the divine and warp it until it's a hook to throw on somebody. And so when we talk about the productivity situation, rather than changing conditions, and that's fine. If they want to, I'm saying I'm not telling anybody how they should run their business. I'm just saying that if I'm not paying attention to how I perceive reality and how I make decisions based upon my perception of reality, and at the end of the day, I'm just doing a surface level emotional numbing, what you might call spiritual bypassing. I don't want to deal with the actual situation. I don't want to have to make the hard choice to actually change my behaviors. I don't want to have to take the risk of actually quitting something I do not like, rather, quitting something I do not love. And as a result of that, it's easier to just go ahead and jump into this meditation booth. It's easier to hit the woosah. It's easier to hit the weed. It's easier to hit the massage chair. Because at least those are healthier options than beer, than alcohol. What I'm saying tonight is that all of it is still the exact same fundamental form of spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing just means that you are looking to tap into mindfulness, meditation, some sort of even prayer in order to bypass your problems rather than deal with your problems. Dude, oh, I remember this. Oh, I remember this. I remember when I was 2013, 2013, I was in Chicago. I had just finished one of my master's degrees, right? And had just came back from Africa, had just was publishing papers, was about to publish in my first paper. And I remember the teacher, for people who don't know, the teacher is a Taoist mystic I trained with for 10 years. And during that time, we had built this meditation laboratory. And, inside of this laboratory, I was just discovering opening all these different doors of the mind. It was in that year that I started astral projecting for the first time. I started feeling the body's inner energy for the first time. Feel the energy first, and then as you follow the body's energy, you start to recognize that there are different sorts of bodies within the body, and that these bodies can be sent out into the world and they can interface with the environment. You can commune with nature in a whole different way. And so I just wanted more and more what I called psychic abilities. Because my master's degree is in anthropology, one of them anyway, which meant I could not get a job in Chicago. So I was splitting my time between teaching at Harold Washington College, Malcolm X College. What I wanted was some stability. What I wanted was to feel like I didn't just waste $40,000 getting a worthless degree, that my time those last 6 years had been well spent, and that somebody would see my value. That's what I wanted. So I was using the meditation, closing myself off in a room and trying to feel out into the universe. I was using my meditation as a form of spiritual bypassing. So I wouldn't have to deal with the fact If there are dimensions and realities and universes and other beings that we can go and interface with, that we can go and speak with within the inner dimensions of our own being, that's exhilarating. And if you are one of the few humans who get the opportunity to explore what's within them in such a way, it can be intoxicating. The perfect tonic for not having to deal with unemployment, or in my case, underemployment during those years. So I would get into my meditation. I would turn on Muji. I would turn on Rupert Spira. I would turn on Eckhart Tolle. You know what I'm saying? I would try and get right. I want to get in presence. I just want to be present all day long so I don't have to deal with the thoughts about my unstable condition, my unstable future. Hmm. In today's world, it's fashionable to do it with manifestation techniques. You get it, but it's all the same. It's all the same deal. It's all the same mindfulness. I want to just be mindful. I want to be as present as possible so that I don't have to deal with these thoughts that I'm deeply afraid of. Do you feel me? That's where I was. And so one day I get on the phone with the teacher and I was like, hey, you got any tips for, I can see a tree outside and I can merge my spirit with the tree and I can extract energy from it. Right. So I can be tired and instead of taking an Advil, I can just connect with this tree and I can sense that there's a link, a sort of shared link that I can start drawing out what we call earth energy from the tree, but I'm inside. You dig what I'm saying? I was like, yo, this is really cool. He was like, that is really cool. I said, yeah, so you got any more like tips, tricks, anything I can do that's a little bit deeper than this? Because, if I can take this from a tree, like what else can I do? You know what I'm saying? Like if I can tap into a tree like this, what about rivers? Is there a way that I could dissolve myself into the very fabric of the universe? Is that possible? Like these are our conversations. These were our conversations. And he was like, hey man, where are you trying to get to? Those were his exact words. Where are you trying to get to? Now, he could have said it another way. He could have said, where are you trying to get away from? What are you trying to get away from? Because all of this extra exploration, I can sense that you're doing it because you desperately want to be someplace other than where you are. You're trying to find a way to get joy from this external activity rather than dealing with what's in front of you. True mindfulness is being aware. That means being aware of when it is time to sit and when it's time to move. You do not move when it's time to sit. You do not sit when it's time to move. You dig what I'm saying? So the teacher saw right away. He was like, "Look, where are you trying to get to, dude? Like you're already you're already having experiences that you couldn't even dream of 3 years ago, 4 years ago. You already did the astral, but you already understand how things work at a fairly deep level. Exactly where are you trying to get though? And the other way of saying that is, where are you trying to get away from? What are you trying to get away from? So when he asked that, I was like, oh, dang, where are you trying to get to? I said, I get your point. But then that doesn't quite stop the problem though, because immediately I was like, oh, he just don't want me going all the way. He don't want me going super far. He don't want me, I'm about to pass him up. It's like, okay, when you sit with that real question, when I sat with that real question, I was like, okay, but if in fact I'm not, this isn't a race and I don't need to pass him. And what if in fact that he is, like he always has, just told me the truth? Then let me sit with this question. And sitting with it, I was like, whatever this reality is, whatever this universe is, eventually I got to a place where I was like, whatever reality is, whatever the universe is, the situation is that there will be time for all manner of exploration. But we come to the human experience in order to do something specific. The great thing for those of you who've ever, some people have never astral projected off their own power, but they might have done LSD, or they might have did the ayahuasca joint or the DMT or whatever. Any of those psychedelics will get you, lick the toad, you know what I'm saying? Any of those will kind of get you in the flavor. It'll get you in the, it's not quite the same experience, but it'll get you, you know. But what you realize is that once you're so far removed from the human experience, once you're outside of your own body, looking down at your own body, and you travel far away. This is what astral projection is. You travel into out into the cosmos and all this. And it should sound like fantasy if this is the first time you've ever heard this. I'm not even asking for you to believe me, only to say that when you do make that travel out, like you learn that it's all still you. You dig what I'm saying? Like it is perhaps more intelligent to understand intelligence as already perfect. That when we look for life on other planets, we are operating off of a mistaken assumption of what life actually is. It's that life is already perfect. Intelligence is already perfect. God is already perfect. And so when life enters into an organism, it's doing so in order to have a particular expression. And what I'm saying to you tonight is that the kind of meditation, the kind of mindfulness that these corporations have decided to take on, or that often pacify people, even when you look at the academic literature, it's usually about dealing with emotion but not changing behavior. Even the books that come out from Simon and Schuster, they talk about mindfulness. They talk about, oh, just wash the dishes when you're washing the dishes. Just cut the grass when you're cutting the grass. And there's a true beauty there. But if you extend that to mean that whatever you're doing requires no pattern change, that just being present rather than being aware of what is happening internally of being aware of the divine signal so that when it tells you that, hey, look, it's time to leave this job, you leave. You don't stay because you need the check. When your body is aching and you don't love what you're doing, true mindfulness is checking in with the body's energy and finding out, how is this divine frequency moving through me right now such that I would need to audit my behavior, change my behavior, augment what I'm doing. In a world where mindfulness is telling us, where the sort of mindfulness, the kind of mindfulness that we're being taught is telling us that whatever is happening is fine, what I'm saying is yes, and that includes that almost hidden impulse to ask, does what I'm doing right now actually fit my highest excitement, my highest destiny? Am I actually following God's will in this moment? And my definition of God is not a guy in the sky, but rather the deep fabric of reality itself. Am I following that voice? Where are you trying to get to? Is it just back to work? Or is it into the unique expression that you took physical form for? You see, that's what the teacher was trying to tell me. What are you trying to do, champ? You want to go explore the cosmos and do all this other, like, there's lifetimes for that. That's not why you came here, to be an organism on this planet at this time. He would say that. He would be like, listen, there's plenty of time for, I'd be like, oh, yo, I went astral project. I was flying, man. I was moving through walls. I came and visited you last night, kid. Like, I was saying all this. And he was like, look, there's plenty of time for all that. But if you're constantly being distracted, trying to get somewhere else, trying to do things in order to get things, you're missing the point. And so connecting back with the mindfulness situation is like, if you're in a Amazon warehouse, that's the image that stuck out the most to me. You know what I'm saying? He's like, if you're